Okay, we had just finished up talking about eighth rests and 16th notes. So you can see the difference between the two flags and the one flag. I called them something weird in the last one. In any case, these are flags right here and right here. The next slide, if I can get to it here, talks about how to count them. Okay, and I went over them real quickly just a minute ago, but basically we use numbers and then we use some syllables when it gets to small enough amounts of time that we need something else. So like when you get to the eighth notes and you're playing 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and we add and. When we get to the really fast ones, the 16th notes where there are 4 to a beat, it's 1, E, and A. And I've got how it sounds here and then what it looks like down here. So it's 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a... Oh, I think I gave you one extra one. Let me try that again. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a... All right, so that's the basic idea of that. The next slide shows you those sharps and flats that I was talking about earlier. Here's a C. C sharp is a half step or one note up from C. And as you can see, a D flat is one note down from D, and they're the same key on the keyboard. So C sharp and D flat are exactly the same note, which is a little confusing, but the basic idea is there. A sharp is one step up, one half step up, excuse me. A D is one half step down. Okay, the natural makes it go back to the original note. The next section, this part's going to be really important to you. You're going to want to come back to this one often. These are the letter names for the treble and the bass clef. It's very important you look to see what kind of clef is here. These are the ones that we'll mostly be using when we sing in chorus for now. Eventually, as our boys' voices change, which will usually happen some 8th grade, usually 9th or 10th for most, and some will be 11th or 12th before they change, and that's all normal. When boys' voices change, they drop down to the bass clef the majority of the time. Some women can sing a little bit of bass clef. Some men, actually all men, can sing the treble clef all the way through with a different kind of voice called a falsetto, but their regular talking voice is usually down a little bit lower than treble. It's usually in bass. So the spaces, see how all 4 of these notes are between the lines? Instead of the line going through them, they're between it. Those are called spaces, and they spell the word face. This space is the F space. The second one from the bottom is A. The third one is C. The fourth one is E, and we count from the bottom up here. The lines, you can remember every, good, boy, does, fine, or deserves fudge, or whatever you learned in elementary school is fine, as long as you have the right letters. E, G, B, D, F. And if you take a good look, you'll see the line goes right through the middle of the note. So those are the lines. Spaces for bass clef, A, C, E, G, all cars eat gas. It's a good way to remember that one. G, B, D, F, A. Good boys do fine always is the sentence that I always used when I learned piano as a kid. So this slide is going to be really important to you as you learn these letters. We mentioned dotted notes earlier. The dot adds half the value of the note. So this whole note is worth 4 beats. Okay, we learned that a couple slides before this one. So half of that is 2. So 4 plus 2 is 6. So a dotted half note is worth 6 beats. You don't see them very often, but they do exist. Dotted half note you'll see a lot. A half note by itself gets 2. Half of that is 1. Add them together. You've got 3. So a dotted half note gets 3 beats. A dotted quarter note, the quarter note gets 1. So you add to that and you get a half of 1. I'm supposed to show you half a finger? I don't know. Anyway, 1 plus a half is 1 1/2. And that's what you see here. Now this gets a little confusing because it's fractions. Fractions are fun. I like fractions. I know a lot of people get scared of them, but once you get the hang of it, it's not too bad. Think about it as pie or pizza or something like that. The dotted eighth note, that should have an H on it right there, but I just noticed. Anyway, the eighth note gets a half of a beat to start with, so there's that half of a finger. And then the dot gets half of that, which is a quarter of a finger, and I don't think I can show you that. But in any case, you've got a half plus a fourth. Okay, so if you think of that like a pizza, you've got half of a pizza plus a fourth of a pizza, you end up with 3/4 of that pizza. Okay, so if you think of it that way, you can kind of figure it out. And our last slide here shows you some examples of counting. If I were to play this rhythmically, and I'm not going to play all the correct notes here because I just have a triangle, but if I were to play this correctly rhythmically, it would be 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1 E and a 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so use these slides or the video or the PowerPoint. Come back and look at them when you need to while you're doing your bell ringer, and hopefully by the time you've done the entire bell ringer, you will know what you're doing on all of the notes. And then you can take your quizzes, hopefully without looking back at the notes. So it's in your head so that when we go to the next step, you'll know it and won't have to keep looking things up. So try to study a little bit before you get to the quizzes so you know how this works and not just taking it from a slide and plugging it into your quiz. Really try to learn it a little bit by looking over this again, watching the video or looking at the slides and getting it ingrained in there. Good job. See you soon.